I think if you actually look at what the Hebrew says, even if you want to take it literally, the word for all of humanity being destroyed is all of Adam's being destroyed. It's that word Adam. It's talking about the descendants of Adam and Eve. And what's the world that it's talking about? It's talking about their world, and it's talking about the Eretz. I mean, if you read what the Eretz means, it doesn't mean the planet Earth. They didn't know that Earth was a planet at that time. They talk about lands beyond the Eretz. It's talking about that area. So if you're going to read Genesis literally, it's just talking about that area being destroyed by the flood. And it turns out that there's really, there's really interesting evidence, actually, in scientific. I mean, it's purely secular stuff that shows that there was, for example, in the Persian Gulf oasis. You guys know where the Persian Gulf is. It's right by Iraq and Saudi Arabia. It's a gigantic area. It used to be a gigantic oasis that wasn't underneath the ocean because the oceans were 400 feet lower. There's this gigantic oasis that had water coming up out of the ground because it was below the aquifer level. And that's also in the range which it's consistent with oral history being able to retain that. There's been these really interesting studies. They look at Aborigines and look at their stories that they have. And they retain a memory going back about 10,000 years to when the waters were lower. They can know the geography underneath the water from their stories. Isn't that crazy? Anyways, it just seems to be one thing that a lot of theologians honestly have found really interesting, and a place of connection where maybe what's being talked about in Genesis, even if you're going to say it's a pure myth, there's some sort of connection to that physical world that's being talked about. They knew about the locations that were being talked about when it describes where the Garden of Eden is in Genesis 2. We kind of lost that history, but I think they knew it. Even if you're going to say it's a myth, and it's not real and Adam and Eve aren't real, the way it's talked about in Genesis kind of presumes that the readers know where that is. So I think if you actually read it in Hebrew and talk to people who understand it in Hebrew, and like I said, it's not about whether I take it literal or mythological. You can read it very literally. Just don't read it in English literally. Read it in Hebrew literally, then a lot of this stuff really just doesn't become a problem.